The Edmonton Oilers have remembered how to win hockey games and a whole lot more on today's edition of Locked On Oilers.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to this Monday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search. Match with Indeed. So on today's edition of Locked On Oilers, we are going to talk about what's worked for the Oilers in their last two games. They got another game tonight. They're taking on the New Jersey Devils a little bit earlier than usual start time, 8:30. So got that in the back of our minds as well. See if they can extend their winning streak to 3 straight games. But we're going to start in the first segment. We're going to talk all about Leon Drasaitl in his 2 games without McDavid. We are going to talk big picture as to why it is important not to harp on each individual game and to try and thread together a common theme and common ideas so that you're not going insane on a game-to-game basis. And then in our final segment, we'll tie a bow on this Monday episode talking about Zach Hyman finally getting on the stat sheet. So at the outset, I want to frame this conversation about Leon Drasaitl in a certain way. And I think sports media at large has largely adopted the parlance, the phraseology, and frankly, the talking points of the way fans talk about the game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it does a disservice to the players when we reduce them at a certain point to the back of the hockey card, if you will. You know, I am a big proponent of statistical analysis. It is one of the key principles in all evaluations I do in hockey. And I think when we want to talk about stats and comparing that, that's one thing. But I think a lot of the conjecture around Draisaitl in his career, and this is the big takeaway I want you to have, so many people who don't watch the Oilers consistently, who maybe only see them once or twice a year, they see the power play stats. They see McDavid and Draisaitl on the power play. They see Leon hammering that one-timer from the sharp angle. And that does everything. That does everything in the validating of a certain opinion. And I don't like doing stuff like this because it doesn't really do anything other than serve me wanting to vent about dumb opinions. But Draisaitl is undoubtedly one of the 7 or 8 best hockey players in the entire world. I think you could make an argument for as high as 4 or 5. And I know there are a lot of detractors. There are a lot of people, especially amongst the Calgary Flames community, who like to say, well, he's not good at defense, so he can't be one of the 10 best players in the world. The problem with that argument is that offense is always going to be more valuable than defense. That's the first foundational part. Secondly, even if he isn't great at defense, which he isn't, I concede that. I say that quite often, that Draisaitl's major deficiency is the simple fact that he's not great defensively, that he does not suppress scoring chances against, that even though he is a physical player, he's not able to use that effectively for defense. So it puts him into a weird box. But if he's bad at defense and he still scores this much, we are undoubtedly talking about a force of nature type player that the game orbits around. The fact that he's on the same team as Connor McDavid shouldn't be used against him. And I know the sports media discourse has been forever poisoned by LeBron joining the Heat and doing the LeBron and Dwayne Wade, Batman and Robin shtick that really was rooted in lack of creative, or should I say forward thinking. Obviously, in an ideal world, you want to have as many talented players as possible. And as a fan, you can put your hand up and say, well, yeah, I understand why people are jealous. I understand why people don't like Draisaitl. I understand why people don't like McDavid. I wish every team could get to experience what this is like, because McDavid and Draisaitl, when they are operating at full speed together on the same wavelength, is something you just don't see in today's NHL. There are glimmers of it in other places, but that's usually a defenseman and a forward, not two forwards. For as good as I think Mikko Rantanen is, he's not nearly as dynamic as Draisaitl is as an offensive player, especially in terms of his shooting ability. So let's be fair here. We here as Oilers fans are spoiled. We know we're spoiled. But people who want to still litigate this like there's an argument to be had here are insane to me. Draisaitl is undoubtedly one of the best players of this era. And it is not his fault he is on the team he's on. He plays with the players he plays with. If you want to ding him for pre-2021, 2022, where him and McDavid were each other's most common line mates for much of the first 4 or 5 years of their overlap in Edmonton, that's fair. I still don't think you get it. I think you're missing the forest for the trees. Yeah, of course, if I can have two supernatural players on one line, I'm going to overload that one line and I'm going to dominate those minutes and try and figure out the rest. Of course, the conundrum for the Oilers has been, how do we distribute our offense more evenly throughout our lineup so that it doesn't just come down to one line? Because as you saw in the Cup final last year, chasing a goal as much as you want, as much as Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid, Bouchard, Ekholm are out there trying to get that goal in Game 7, sometimes you just can't do it. And all that does is burn out your big dogs. And then it puts your bottom line, your middle six guys in a position where they're going to have to be able to carry a little bit more of the load than they want. So in these two games, Draisaitl's picked up 3 points in each game. He's playing just about in line with his career averages for time on ice. I think the Oilers have stumbled into something here with the trio of Podkolzin, Arvidsson, and Draisaitl, especially. What Podkolzin brings is not something they really have anywhere else in their lineup. Like, Zach Hyman has some elements of that in his game, but it doesn't have the same impact or tenor because he's not as big. He's not as strong. Yeah, Hyman has a little bit of that Tasmanian devil forecheck pressure in him, but it doesn't work the same way it does when Podkolzin does it, when he is just bearing down on guys. He's really done a good job forechecking, and it opens more doors for the Oilers. You have heard me talk about the idea of having multifaceted levels of offense, being able to score off the rush and off the cycle. The Oilers are a rush-based offense. When you have the talent they do, when you can split McDavid and Draisaitl across your first two lines, and then you still have Connor Brown and Jeff Skinner lurking around, who are both really fast straight-line skaters, it makes a lot of sense that the Oilers want to create off of the rush, that's where they feel they have the biggest advantage. But when you add an extra element to that, so it's not just Draisaitl skating the puck into the zone with possession. It can be a dump in and Podkolzin goes and gets it. And because Podkolzin is the one pressuring the puck, Draisaitl should have more space and Arvidsson should have more space. And it creates more opportunities offensively. And that's really the key here. And why I've enjoyed watching the line so much through these two games without McDavid. And look, McDavid will be back sooner rather than later. We'll talk about that. He skated this morning. He talked to the media this morning. He's still probably at least a week or so away from being able to play, but he's a sicko. He's going to want to get back as soon as he possibly can. And because of that, we're going to have to reconfigure this lineup again, but that's not a bad thing. And as much as there will be people who like facetiously say, oh, all the Oilers had to do was take McDavid out of the lineup to win a couple games, it's a good joke. It's very facetious and tongue-in-cheek. My concern would be if anyone was saying that seriously, but I don't think that's the case here. That'll do it for our first segment here on Locked On Oilers. We are going to take a quick break. We come back. We are going to tackle why this is a bit more of a meta problem than maybe you think, coming up next, right after this. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. If you pulled up the PrizePicks homepage, you could do whether or not Baker Mayfield is going to have more than 230.5 passing yards. Cade Otton is going to have more than 54.5 receiving yards, or Kareem Hunt's going to have more than 63.5 rushing yards. If you want to get in on the action, head on over to PrizePicks, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNHL, and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Remember, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNHL, get $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. We are all driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. The thing I like about Indeed is that it is constantly learning. It leverages over 140 million qualifications and preferences every single day. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Victory Monday edition of Locked On Oilers. I can't help but talk like a football person at times because I am still a football person. As much hockey content as I do, as much as I love hockey, I'm still a football person at my core. And Victory Monday, it's a good feeling. You know, Oilers got work to do. They played the Flames well last night. I felt they did a good enough job to hold them off and put that game away down the backstretch. And then tonight, you get a nice opportunity in a New Jersey team that's still trying to put it all together. The Devils definitely having issues as far as their defensive ability as a team. They are conceding a lot of chances against. They are conceding a lot of expected goals against. Former Flame Jacob Markstrom is now in net for them, so it's a little bit less volatile than last year when they had a small army of rotating guys who never really got it going for them. But I want to talk about this because I want to talk about the idea of improvement over the course of a season, because I think this is something that hockey, that basketball, that even baseball, frankly, this is something that we on the outside looking in, it is hard to talk about productively. And what do I mean by that? So when I think about the Oilers' issues, and the Oilers do have issues, I do think every team in the league right now has issues, even the Rangers, who are 10-2-1 out of the gate. I do think they have issues. I think the Panthers have issues. I think every team in the NHL right now has issues, but I think it is very tricky in hockey to work out your issues as a player and as a team, because in hockey, it's not as mechanical and cut and dry as far as process changes like it might be in football, like it might be in baseball. Like if a pitcher is struggling with a certain pitch, they're going to take him into the pitching lab and they're going to work on his mechanics, or they're going to have him change his splits. So if he sets it up with one pitch, he might try something else. If you're a hitter that's struggling, they're going to bring you in the batting cage and they're going to work your mechanics. Are you stepping too early? Are you pulling your head out? In football, if you're a quarterback and you're getting through your reads too slow, well, do you know the plays well enough? Do you know C to B to A? Or is it something in your release? Are you pulling the ball low and then up to throw? Are you twisting your elbow or your wrist a little bit too much on your release so you're inaccurate? Are your feet under you? Are you aiming where you want to? Are you relying too much on your upper body to get it where you want it to go? If you're a receiver and you can't get off the line, are you getting pressed? Is your footwork not good enough? If you're a defensive player, do you know your assignment? Do you know where you need to be? Or are you misreading it? And in hockey, because hockey is so much more free-flowing, it is so much more dynamic as far as structure, and it is very much so the most individual-based sport in the sense that the decision-making it is very different from any other sport in terms of what a player is asked and expected to do. When you put the ball in the hands of a shooter in basketball and they have the corner three, it is expected that they're taking that corner three. It's not the same thing in hockey because your sight lines are not the same. The ability of the defense to prevent the basket in basketball is very different than the defensive players in hockey trying to stop a goal from being scored against them. So I'm framing this around the conversation around Darnell Nurse, because right now it is unequivocal that Darnell Nurse's 1930 a game is actively hindering the Oilers' ability to win a game. Through the games they have played so far, the Oilers have conceded 38 goals against. Darnell Nurse has been on the ice for 19 of them, and that's between 5-on-5 and the penalty kill. Half of the goals the Oilers have conceded this season have come during Darnell Nurse minutes. And there are remedies to this that might help. And I do think it's important to note he does have a rotating door of defensemen on his opposite side. I do think it's important to note that he is playing injured, but we know what we know about hockey. We know it is very difficult to get players to sit out when they're hurt. We know it is very difficult to get players to unlearn behavior. And this is probably the biggest realization I've had as the longer I've covered hockey. I've been doing hockey content going on almost 10 years now. Next 2025 will be 10 years of me doing hockey content between written stuff, video stuff, podcasts. 10 years. And the biggest takeaway I have had is that players don't really develop in the same kind of way we would think that they do in the other sports, because the state of the game in hockey, it is so much more liquid and so much more fluid. It is, I want to say, almost impossible to get replicable environmental factors for players to be able to track them along, to move them along. And the biggest indicators of eventual success for a player are still ice time. You want to put up counting stats, you need ice time. You want to be considered a good defenseman, you need to kill penalties. And all of that is interconnected, and it is really difficult to break through. And I've talked about this concept of the causes of a problem, the long, medium, and short-term causes of a problem. The Oilers losing Darnell Nurse's minutes as decisively as they are this year, there are long-term causes of that. The fact that both Peter Chiarelli and Ken Holland bridged Darnell Nurse right up to unrestricted free agency. He had a career year in his unrestricted free agent year. That type of long and medium term planning got you in this position. You were very desperate for defensive help because you perceived it to be your team's weak point. And why was it the team's perceived weak point? Because they had missed on a lot of defensemen they had tried over the years to stabilize their back end, because they felt their offense was more than good enough, that all they needed was a passable defense and it would be enough to get them by. But you are looking at what 7-8 years of continued mismanagement of a position group does, where you got two guys. Bouchard in the 2018 draft is a guy. Bouchard is one of the 10 best defensemen in the NHL, even with his defensive woes. It's a very similar conversation to what we were saying with Draisaitl before. Yeah, Bouchard's actual defensive acumen is largely based on positioning and IQ. It is not based on physicality. It is not based on blocking shots. It is not based on preventing scoring chances against. It is controlling the puck and being in possession. So this segment has run a little long. We're going to take one more quick break. We'll tie a bow on that thought. We'll wrap up with Zach Hyman coming up next after this second and final break on today's edition of Locked On Oilers, where we have got your team covered every single day. Listen up, renters. You ever feel like you're stuck in a loop of rent payments and watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that game around and start earning some serious rewards. That is where Built Rewards come in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put those points towards a flight, a hotel stay, with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 different hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. It is all designed to help meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built Points have consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/lockedonnhl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure to use our Locked On URL so they know we sent you. Join BILTDOTCOM/LockedOnNHL to start earning points with your rent payments today. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Join FanDuel.com today. If you were so curious, you got a Super Bowl rematch tonight on Monday Night Football. The Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield heading to Kansas City. The Chiefs, 9.5-point home favorites. Thursday night, old school AFC North. Joe Burrow and the Bengals heading to Baltimore to take on Lamar and the Ravens. The Ravens are 6.5-point home favorites. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on Oilers Victory Monday. And look, it is a long, winding road. And I want to finish the point I was making in that second segment because I do think it is tricky to convey. And I know I get excited about these ideas because I really like talking about this stuff. The game within the game is eminently fascinating. And it's not something we get a whole lot of meat on the bone to chew on. We don't get a lot of understanding with this because conceptually, thinking about this the way I think about sports, I want to pull Draisaitl aside. Excuse me, not Draisaitl. I want to pull Darnell Nurse aside, and I want to talk to him about components of his game. I want to talk to him why he's always floating on the penalty kill. Because when you're watching the puck, you don't want to be watching the puck. It is one of the real oxymoronic habits, traits, phraseologies within the game to get caught puck watching. Because, in theory, you want to be watching the puck. You need to know where it's going. But that's where you start to break down. When you are just watching the puck and you start to float, you get outside of your structure, you open up lanes for the other team. That's how you get killed on the penalty kill. And the penalty kill, it's getting better. It definitely is not as bad as it was through the first handful of games, but it's still an issue. Then, building off of that further, when you are in those battles in the corners, and you are struggling to get the puck up the wall, what can we do to help you? Do we need to have shorter first outlet passes so you're not under as much pressure because we know you can't skate to get it out of pressure? Okay, we can do something with that. When you get caught in transition and you take a really deep posture in that you are holding the blue line and you're dipping, trying to force the pass instead of letting them shoot, what can we do to help you do that better? And the thing is, these conversations are being had. You know, the Oilers have absolutely sat Darnell Nurse down at some point in the last few weeks, and tried to make these teaching points, because that's what you do in sports. You don't make that correction in the game. You pull a few clips together, you sit the player down, you run them through the clips, and then you explain, you're doing this, we would like you to do this. Because these are the same issues over and over and over and over again. Okay, real quick on Zach Hyman, who I do want to shout out, getting on the sheet, 2 goals, 2 games. It was coming. He was due. I am not predicting a massive explosion of offense from Zach Hyman, at least until McDavid returns. But at the very least, And I made this comparison last week when we were talking about when he was going to get the Ziggy off the board. It is a process. As an athlete, you are constantly in battle with yourself and trying to get your head right to be able to compete at the highest possible level. Hyman getting the 0 off the board means almost as much to him as it does to the rest of us. Because now he knows there's not something wrong with him. He's not cursed. He doesn't have to overthink it as much because, as we often say here, more is lost to indecision than wrong decision. When you are a player that is struggling, that is in a slump, and you get in your own head, that is where you run into trouble. That is where you start to feel the need to overcompensate. And then you start getting outside of your game. When you start to get outside of your game, that is when you mess up. It is a real conundrum here. Because frankly, you want these guys in that mindset of what can I do to be better? What can I do to be better? But it eventually reaches a point of diminishing return where there's only so much you can do. And there's only so much you really want to do because you don't want them to dwell on it. You want them to be able to maintain a reasonably even keel. You don't want them too high. You don't want them too low. The worst is when they're too low for too long because that's when you get into really prolonged slumps. But you got Hyman on the sheet 2 games in a row. Keep the good energy going. The Draisaitl, Podkolzin, Arvidsson line is doing a fabulous job at 5-on-5. Fabulous job. Controlling possession. The goal splits will start to get better. The longer it stays together, the more successful it is. They're getting Bouchard at goal minutes, which is nice. I wanted to shout this stat out, but I didn't get a chance to in the first segment. In the minutes Draisaitl's played with Bouchard this year, the Oilers have won those minutes 7 goals to 3 goals. And Draisaitl's minutes without Bouchard, they have lost those minutes 2 goals to 4 goals. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Going forward, the Oilers do have work to do. This will not be a linear process. There will continue to be ups and downs. They are going to continue to rotate between Emberson, Dermott, and Stetcher on the right side of their defense. They really cannot afford an injury on their back end at all. Because once we start dipping into those guys as all permanent lineup guys, that's where I think Chris Knobloch's creativity and his risk tolerance are going to start to reach again a point of diminishing returns, and he is going to have to make an executive decision as far as what matters to him. Is it the stability? Is it trying to get better? Because that all has to go into the consideration of making those decisions. So that'll do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I will talk to you guys after the Devils-Oilers game tonight going into Tuesday morning. I hope everybody enjoyed today's show, getting through their Monday as best as they can. If you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, please give the show a 5-star review. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Leave me a comment. Let me know. How do you feel about where Draisaitl's at, where Nurse is at, where Hyman's at? I will talk to you guys after Oilers Devils. Until then, let's go Oilers.